explain to the committee why you chose to fund this dangerous research in China.
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution.
Did you fund gain-of-function research in other biolabs around the world?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
The committee will have to consider, after this hearing, what appropriate action should be taken against you for the failure to testify after being directed to do so. It's against the law to obstruct an investigation of Congress. There will be repercussions to your refusal to testify today.
Dr. Anthony Fauci repeatedly invoking his Fifth Amendment rights before a Senate committee on the origins of COVID. The blockbuster hearing featuring his pandemic-era diary entries released by Senator Rand Paul. Fauci's writings exposing a stark difference between what he was saying publicly about the virus and what really mattered to him privately. Hello, everyone. This is Outnumbered. I'm Emily Compagno, and joining us today, Sandra Smith, co-anchor of America Reports, Donna Rotuno, Fox News contributor, criminal defense attorney, co-host of the weekly Rap Sheet, and host of Crime and Justice with Donna Rotuno, Rosanna Scotto, Fox 5 New York anchor and host of The Underground Economy on Fox Nation, and Tom Shillue, Fox News contributor and Fox Nation host. Well, Dr. Fauci is stonewalling Republican lawmakers this morning over his handling of COVID. Just take a look.
Did you literally lie to your own diary?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
What day of the week is it today?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
What color tie are you wearing?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Will you apologize, just apologize, to the people who you harmed through your actions?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Maybe unsurprisingly, Democrats are rushing to his defense.
I want to start by thanking you for more than 50 years of service to this country at the National Institutes of Health. And it is unfortunate that you have been put in the position that you are in today.
Republicans are eager to rebrand you as a villain in order to distract from their own failure to protect Americans from soaring health care costs.
These attacks upon Dr. Fauci, it's not just about him. It's sending signals to others who are thinking about serving our country, our scientists, our doctors, our healthcare professionals.
But those newly revealed pandemic-era diary entries are raising many red flags. For instance, on the COVID origins, quote, "Now we know the market was not the source, it was the amplifier." Another on masking up, quote, "Big issue today is whether we should be recommending masks for everyone. We probably were too strong in saying masks do not work." And on school closures, he says his appearances on TV helped influence California's decision to impose statewide lockdowns. Journalist Matt Taibbi, who extensively covered censorship in the COVID era, weighed in on Fox This Morning. Watch.
For the rest of his tenure, he covers this up, and the press let him get away with it, which is really just a function of partisan politics. It has nothing to do with science, which is and the irony here is that he became synonymous with science while he was denying it the entire time.
All right, thank goodness we have our legal eagle on the couch today. Donna, can you just break down for everyone, what does that pardon mean? What does the contempt possibility mean? Is he covered? You know, talk to us about what actually could happen legally with what's going on here.
So this is interesting, and I think we are going to see some legal challenges. First of all, normally when you are afforded a pardon, it means that you do not have a Fifth Amendment right, because if you can't be prosecuted, then there's no reason that you can't answer questions because you are safe from prosecution. Just like a witness is given immunity in a trial, right? Because they may incriminate themselves. We're going to give you immunity because we need your information. So that's similar here. What I think the issue, and I think the reason his lawyers have advised him to take the Fifth in light of the pardon, is because this only covers federal cases, any type of federal charges. So there's a slew of things the state could go after Anthony Fauci for. And so now I think the issue is if it falls within the statute of limitations. So I think the issue now is that he is trying to protect himself from other potential criminal activity that falls outside of the federal purview. Now, if you're talking about the issue regarding whether or not he can be prosecuted for perjury and or contempt, I think that's the other reason that he decided to not really speak today, because if he contradicts anything that's in any of his musings, any of his writings, and his own writings contradict what he said to the public. So he's opened himself up to perjury there. So that's another issue that he's trying to protect himself from. But you really can't, because that doesn't fall under the pardon power. So the senators are going to say, hey, sorry, you don't have that pardon power when it comes to whether or not you're lying to us. So I think that's where you're going to see the litigation in terms of, can he shield himself from the lying perjury aspect of this, given the fact that those two things are not protected by the pardon.
And Sandra, you and I were watching together. I mean, we were shaking our head at his hubris, the hubris when confronted with such conflicting reports and with devastating consequences, with people talking about, senators, about the griefs that they felt over loss of life and school shutdowns. And it's just such a monumental impact that this person, I noted, by the way, didn't even have the dignity to look them in the eye while they were talking about those things.
My son was in kindergarten during the first year of full COVID shutdowns. Zoom learning. When they did go back to school, he was fully masked for 8 hours a day. People watching this have incredibly strong emotions. And then to see a man, as you and I were discussing, that almost appeared to be smiling in that exchange with Holly, it hurts. It hurts. And this is a man who's not stopping to say, this is what my lawyers are advising me, but I understand how it could be difficult because I know the American people have big questions over what happened. He did this, invoked the fifth, 111 times. He had half a dozen lawyers there with him, one of which Paul had to remove from the room because he spoke out of turn. That exchange with Holly, I think, was incredibly telling for many reasons. Holly also said this is a man who's not only showing contempt for the body, he's showing contempt for the American people, how he displayed himself in that room. What I'm thinking of as I saw him sitting there in those moments is all those families who had to say goodbye to a loved one in the hospital over a Zoom call, hold up a sign from a nursing home to say hi to a loved one, the school shutdowns, the businesses, the business owners who lost their businesses, lost their livelihoods during COVID. This was an extremely difficult thing to watch today, I think, for everybody in this country.
Yeah, I can't get this image out of my head of these nurses holding up a sign on a hospital window that said he was at peace to the family on the sidewalk. I mean, it just makes me, it's incredible. I expected more from the Democrats, Rosanna. I expected even a neutrality of asking some questions. I was shocked at, frankly, their continued lionization of him and unwilling to even say, yeah, I have a couple questions too, sir.
They are continuing, obviously, to support him. And I just want to make a confession. I trusted Dr. Fauci. We were in a pandemic. I mean, how often are you in a pandemic? It's a rare thing. And you believe that this man, who is a scientist, was going to get us through it. Living in New York City, we had a mayor who barely showed up to work. He didn't get to work till like noon because he had to go to the gym and then get coffee and a pastry. So, I mean, we were relying on Dr. Fauci to get us through a pandemic. When I was anchoring Good Day New York, we had Dr. Fauci on our show several times. He was a calming figure. And I have to admit, I had special feelings for Dr. Fauci because he was a Brooklynite. He grew up in my neighborhood in Dyker Heights. His father was my family's pharmacist. Dr. Fauci was on the bicycle delivering drugs to our, not drugs, but medicines to our family. And so there was a certain pride in Dr. Fauci. So to hear this now, to hear that this was a man who was just engulfed with his own publicity and really did not maybe have the best interest of all of us at heart is so disappointing. And, my dad died of COVID. My dad believed in Dr. Fauci. My dad got 2 shots. My dad died of COVID after he got the 2 shots.
I'm so sorry.
So this is a big wake-up call today.
Yeah, it's a betrayal. I was struck, Tom, by how many also lawmakers shared their own origins of joining the body, of joining the Senate, and saying, I ran because of this. I ran because of the government overreach, because I saw rights being obliterated, and I wanted to sort of represent the people in Congress, essentially. So this, because of the reliance on Fauci, obviously the world changed, but that inspired a whole generation of people. It like absolutely impacted a whole generation horrifically. And it also inspired people to say, we saw this in real time of how horrific it was when everyone just unilaterally or blindly trusted a unilateral source to the detriment of everyone, and also willfully ignoring all of the questions the rest of the medical community were raising.
That's right. And that's why I don't want to take this lightly. I'm not as somber about looking at these hearings as you guys are. I love this stuff because he's a fraud, and he's being exposed as such. This was a celebration. When Hawley was asking him those questions, that's a riot. When he says, what color is your tie, and he can't answer it, because he can't answer anything. He's a total fraud. We shouldn't have trusted him, but he's not alone. We don't want to make him Dr. Evil, okay? He is Dr. Evil. He did lie to us, but people who didn't lie to us are at fault as well. Half the country fell for this nonsense. People should not trust in these authorities when they are saying things that we know are not right. Contact tracing is bad. It's a violation of the First and the Fourth Amendment. We should remember that and not say, oh, the Wuhan lab, did he tell the truth? People who told the truth still trust in contact tracing. I am not going to tell you who I had dinner with the other night. No. The answer is no. Okay? So that was the horror. COVID was the horror. This is my celebration.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube, and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.